All right, what is up, Utah fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest, and I am super excited. This is a video I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for. This is going to be the deep dive, in depth breakdown for Utah versus Florida. If you guys are big time into stats and analytics and breaking down PFF grades and stuff like that, this should be the video for you. Whether you're a Utah fan or a Florida fan, this is going to be a real deep dive, let you know every player on both sides of the ball that's going to be starting on Thursday. So it should be awesome. So whether you're a Utah fan or a Florida fan, I'm going to try to keep it pretty down the middle. I am a Utah fan, so I'm sure my bias will play a bit of a role, but I'm going to try to keep it as down the middle as I can, call out good matchups on both sides for both teams. But either way, this should be a ton of fun, guys. These videos do take a while and they take quite a bit of research. So if you guys do appreciate it, please do drop a like. Also, as we go through the video, we're going to be talking about a lot here, guys. We're going to be breaking down a lot of different players and a lot of different matchups. I want you guys to comment throughout the video. I mean, if you're just saying some random crap about like go Gators or something like that, or just random stuff, I'm probably not going to reply. But if you say like, go Gators, I think this is a great matchup, I'd love to interact with you guys and I'd love to see what your opinions are. So I'm excited to see all that. So there's going to be a lot of topics in the video. Feel free to comment multiple times. I'd love to hear what you guys think about different parts of the video. That's totally open. And then finally, make sure you guys subscribe, whether you're a Utah fan or just a football fan, Pac-12 fan, Big 12 fan, SEC fan. If you guys want to know in-depth details about Utah's matchup for that game that week, this is the spot for you. This is the channel. I really feel like we do a different service than anyone else does. And for those fans of the channel, you guys have probably seen I've had a couple guest content contributors on the channel recently. Throughout the season, they're going to be helping pump out more videos. We got a bunch of guys, bunch more content. You guys have not seen all the content creators that'll be dropping videos for the Utah Utes Football Digest throughout the season. So I'm really excited for that. So make sure you guys subscribe. And on that note, without waiting any longer, let's go ahead and dive into the matchup, Utah versus Florida. All right, guys. And the first thing we're going to go ahead and take a look at is the Utah QB room. Obviously, a lot of scrutiny for Utah's QB room, considering there's not 100% chance that Cam Rising is going to be starting. So it's definitely worth talking about. So first, let's talk about Cam Rising. Obviously, if he is in the game, he will be one of the best players on the field, if not the best player on the field for either team. And I really mean that. This is a game breaker type of player. Cam Rising is a big time difference maker, and not having him on the field is a big deal for Utah. I think it really changes the optics of this game. But I do want to bring up Bryson Barnes. I'd like us all to take a look at this guy. He's not just some random quarterback, guys. Just to give you guys an idea, Bryson Barnes had a 75.1 grade in 2022 and a 78.1 grade in 2021. Now, to be fair, in 2021, it's on a very small number of snaps, but it is all against Ohio State. So you can't really say it's not worth at least taking into consideration. So, but in 2022, he got a 75.1 grade on a good number of snaps, 189 snaps, guys. That is not just some random compilation of plays. That is a good sample size that whether you're Florida or whether you're Utah, needs to take it seriously. Bryson Barnes does not suck. And I'd go as far as to say I think there's a lot of Utah fans out there that don't understand how gifted we are to have Bryson Barnes as a backup. Super solid, super athletic. I mean, I don't know if you'd say super athletic, but a guy that can definitely make plays with his feet as well as with his arm. Just to bring up some of the numbers here for you guys, you can take a look here. Let's put it up full screen it. Boom. We got a bunch of numbers here. So Bryson Barnes right here, guys. So these were his stats last year. So a 64.9% completion percentage, 430 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 20 carries for 116 yards. And don't forget, those numbers are against Penn State and Washington State. I'll be accurate and make sure to say that the most of the good numbers are against Washington State. I mean, he didn't do terribly against Penn State, but not great. Definitely struggled. Penn State was freaking awesome. If you guys followed Penn State last year, they were ridiculous. But either way, Bryson Barnes is a great quarterback, and if we do have to play him, it's not the craziest thing in the world. It really isn't, seriously. All right, now let's move on to the Utah wide receiver core. I know this is going to be the topic of a lot of scrutiny for any Florida fans watching this. All right, guys, and here is the the Utah wide receiver room. Obviously, we're going to start with the big time star in Devon Vele. So Devon Vele had been an average to below average receiver up until this past year. Now, he had flashes. We all knew going into last year that we could see a big year from Devon Vele. But last year is where he really took his stride. You know, these are good grades, a 70.2. And don't forget, with that 70.2, he's the number one receiver on the team getting that 70.2. So it was not a cakewalk for this guy. He really stepped up last year, and he really is a number one wide receiver. You look at that number of 70.2 against number one corners in all across the country. You got to like what you see there. So you got to be happy with Devon Vele. The next guy we've got is Money Parks. Now, Money Parks had a 64.2. That's right at about an average grade. And what I'd say we're getting with Money Parks is a big time playmaker. Like, if he gets loose, he is so fast and so explosive that he really can take it to the house. He's really deadly, and he's a guy that definitely put up some numbers last year. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and check out his numbers from last year. All right here. So wide receivers, Money Parks right here. 26 receptions, 414 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I'm all read it. Devon Vele, 5 touchdowns, nearly 700 yards. So both of them had a great season last year. And then the other guy we're going to be looking at for Utah's wide receiver room is Micah Pittman. Micah Pittman is a transfer from Florida State. He also played at Oregon, I believe the school is. Let's double check. Boom. Let's say on here. Not positive. Pretty sure it's Oregon. So don't take my word on that, but pretty sure it's Oregon. But he was a big time playmaker and a guy that flashed a 68 PFF grade. Or what is it exactly? Let's be real exact. 68.4. So definitely a good time player. And last year at Florida State in the ACC, so no slouch of a conference. 32 receptions, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns. So solid playmaker. The other guy I want to point out is Mikey Matthews. So the 3 starting receivers listed are Money Parks, Devon Vele, and Micah Pittman. But all the other backup wide receivers, their names are grayed out on the depth chart. You know who the only backup wide receiver whose name is not grayed out is? Is Money Parks. I mean, with Mikey Matthews. And what I think that means, guys, I think we're going to see some Mikey Matthews. I hadn't made this call until today, but I think that means something. Like, it's in bold, just like the rest of the names. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Mikey Matthews will be number 0. He will be a true freshman, but he came in with a ton of hype, guys. Mikey Matthews is good. So I know Florida has done a lot of talking about great freshmen, but if we're talking about great freshmen, this guy's name needs to be brought up. So that's basically who we should be expecting in the wide receiver core. Also, Emory Simmons, a little below average of a grade, but he was getting a lot of reps at North Carolina and Indiana. So definitely not a terrible player. Let's see his career grades. Break it down here. Yeah, so basically a below average to average player throughout his career. But he played at North Carolina and Indiana, so that's some good football. You're playing against some good teams there. Also, Munir McClain, he's not listed on here. He was a tight end last year, so he could get some rotations in. But that's the Utah wide receiver group right there. Okay, now the running back room for Utah, which in my opinion is one of the least talked about and most underrated groups. And this is considering they do have a little bit of hype, but I don't think the hype is truly worthy of what this room has, guys. Seriously, you take a look here. Jaquindon Jackson, a 91.7 grade on 142 offensive snaps. That is insane, guys. That is, if that was over a bigger sample size, like 400 or 500 snaps, we'd be talking about best running backs in college football, just Jaquindon Jackson alone. Let's go ahead and pull up the stats here just so you guys can get an idea what we're talking about. Jaquindon Jackson, 6.8 yards per carry on 78 carries and 9 touchdowns. If you guys are Florida fans and you think this is just some random converted quarterback to running back, you got another thing coming for you. This guy is legit. Chris Curry, a super small sample size, then he got injured. But if you watch the tape, he looked awesome. So I wouldn't bank on him being a straight stud at the beginning of the year, but I would plan on this guy being a factor. I wouldn't be surprised if he sees the field at all. Then we got Jalen Glover, another guy, only 143 snaps. But on those 143 snaps, let's pull up the numbers. He averaged 4.6 yards per carry. He had 1 touchdown, and he looked awesome doing it. Another great running back, and an 81.9, guys, for running backs, a really, really good grade. Mekhi Bernard as well, a 73.1 on 472 snaps. That's still a good grade. That's good to very good. I mean, this running back room is so loaded. And you look at all that stuff I just brought up. Tavion Thomas is no longer here, but he was more of a pain in the butt than anything else. But you look at everything we just went over. And now let me add on top of all that, we have 3 4-star freshman running backs coming in. So to think that one of those guys isn't going to start to gain some reps and make something happen, seriously, this could be the best running back room in the country. And we're going to break down the PFF grades for the Florida running backs, and because I've heard a lot of cockiness and a lot of like Florida has the best running backs in the country. Guys, I don't think it's close. Utah's got a ridiculous running back room. Florida's got a good one. It's not touching Utah's. All right, and we don't have any fullback grades listed, so we're going to move right into tight ends. So moving into tight ends, let's take a look here. Boom, for Utah tight ends. Bam. Okay, so the first guy we're going to look at is Brant Kuithe, our starting U tight end. Um, you know, straight up 69.4. That's a good grade, well above average. And I would say with Brant Kuithe, honestly, as much as that's the grade and it is what it is, it's on 165 snaps. He looked way better than a 69.4 last year. I felt like until he got injured and Dalton Kincaid just blew up the world, he looked like one of the best tight ends in college football. So if you guys are not familiar with Brant Kuithe, understand we're talking about a huge weapon. If you guys are a Florida fan, you probably remember him last year. He's number 80, was just tearing it up in that game. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people were talking about Dalton Kincaid in that one after they saw what Brant Kuithe could do. So definitely a guy that's going to be an impact player. Then we got Thomas Yasmin, 368 snaps last year, so very good sample size, a 64.6. That's average. What you got to love is the 66.8 grade. That means this guy is a great receiver or above average receiver. Where he struggles, obviously pass blocking and below average run blocking. He's the guy that has the highlights against USC where he's like hurdling guys and ripping through tackles and all that stuff. Just a ridiculous athlete. And then behind them, we've got Landon King. Who else is behind them? I know we have Landon King. Okay, Landon King and Miki Sugaturaga. Miki Sugaturaga got no snaps last year, but there has been a lot of hype for Miki Sugaturaga for years and years. So we'll see how he does. And Miki Sugaturaga is a junior. And then Landon King, Auburn transfer, 63.3 grade, average to slightly below average. But really good tight end room, guys. Another great group for Utah. So really good running backs, really good tight ends. You got to be excited about what we're bringing out into this game. All right, now we're going to talk about the Utah offensive line. Now, this is where I'm going to keep things unbiased. This is a group that I have heard a lot of praise on, and a lot of people have said this is going to be an amazing offensive line. And I got to be honest with you, I think there's some question marks here, guys. I think this offensive line, as you dive in, I wouldn't say it's like I don't think they're going to be good, but I think there's a lot to be proven here. And I wouldn't think that we're just going to throw Florida around at the line of scrimmage on offense. So let me show you guys why. So first off, we got Johnny Maea on 150 snaps, which is a solid sample size, but not a ton. You'd like more than that. He was a 61.1 grade. And on that grade, he's got a 77.0 pass blocking grade, which is ridiculous. It's like really, really good pass blocking. But then he's got a 59.6 run blocking grade, which is quite below average. So you got to wonder what he really is. So like I said, a 59.6 or 150 snaps, you're not really sure what he is. He could be a little worse at pass blocking, a little better at run blocking. I think that's what you'd hope for is, that's about right at pass blocking, but that's a little off at the run blocking. So I'd say with Johnny Maea, you'd hope that you got to love that pass blocking. If that's real and he's just a below average run blocker, you can't hate that. But a 61.1 grade, you don't love that. So, and the reason you'll see such a disparity, even though the grade, it looks good when you break it down, 98 of the snaps he was in on were run blocking snaps. So that's why that run blocking grade is impacting his overall grade so much. And then we're going to go to the guards for Utah. This is a group that a little bit of up, a little bit of down. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. And again, some question marks. So we'll ignore the snap minimum. All right, so we got Michael Mokofisi. He is going to be at right guard. Michael Mokofisi was a 54.1 grade last year, guys. That's getting in the bad range. That's not dreadfully bad, but it's getting to that range where you're like, ooh, that is not good. And that's on 724 snaps. That's not a small sample size. His run blocking or his pass blocking grade atrocious, and his run blocking grade below average to, pretty bad. So I don't love it. One thing I'd say about Michael Mokofisi is there has been a ton of good talk around him, and he continues to get opportunities on this offensive line. So you got to imagine that they do see something in him, and hopefully over another offseason, he's improved that. And this can get the pass block grades a little more like average, and hopefully the run block's a little above average. So I'd say Michael Mokofisi for me is up there with my number one concerns on this offensive line. The other guy I want to look at is Keaton Bills. Now, this is a bright spot of this offensive line, a 71.7 grade, just a real well-rounded guy, 68.9 pass block, a little above average there. That's almost good. And then 70.6 run block, which is a good grade. They're both solid grades on both, and I'd say good grades for both. So you got to be happy with that and the fact that he earned a starting spot. It's good to see, and I'm excited for him to be out there again this year. He should be one of the best guards in the Pac-12. He's going to be starting at left guard. And let's go ahead and move into the tackles for Utah. So this is definitely an exciting group, an exciting position group. So you got on one side, you're going to have the veteran in Seitawa Laumea. Now I'm going to talk about his grade for a second. Seitawa Laumea, 57.6, not very good, right? Pass block, pretty dreadful at a 46.5. Run block, slightly below average, almost average at a 62.5. Let me tell you the story about Seitawa Laumea. So what he is he was a guard, got converted to tackle. That was his first year at tackle. And at the beginning of that year, the first half of that year, his PFF grades were some of the worst I've ever seen, like in the 30s type of grades. And over the course of the season, that second half of the year, those grades started to get a good amount better and look a lot better. So I would say as much as Seitawa Laumea's grade does not look great, it's, quite below average. It doesn't tell the full story. He transitioned positions, and then the second half of the year was a lot better than the first half of the year for this guy. So that's what I would say. And he's going to be playing right tackle. And then this is a fun one. At left tackle, we have Spencer Fano, 4-star offensive tackle for Utah. Big time prospect out of Utah. The kid's a stud. And the guy behind him, just so you guys know, is Tanoa Togiai. And if you look at the grades here, Tanoa Togiai, it was on a small snap number, but he's listed as a guard last year, and he actually had 67 snaps where he graded it as 74.4. So I'd imagine the fact that he's above Spencer Fano's above this guy on the depth chart should be a pretty promising sign, right? It should be getting you pretty excited about Utah's team. So I like to see that. I like to see that a lot. Uh, Little worried that we got a freshman starting, but I'd also say there was a lot of talent in this offensive line room that could have started. Same with Michael Mokofisi, where it's like, well, nobody beat him for the spot, right? So you got to hope Spencer Fano and Michael Mokofisi will show up and show up well. So that's the Utah offensive line, and that concludes the offense for the Utah Utes. All right, and we're going to go ahead and jump right into the Florida defense and how they match up against the Utah offense. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So, first guy we have as the first corner is Jason Marshall Jr. Right here, we got a 65.9 grade. Average coverage, average run defense, not good pass rush, but who really cares about that? And it is on 686 snaps. So I'd say that's an average corner. Um, right off the bat, I think that Devon Bailey is probably a little better than him based on the PFF grade. Not that this guy sucks, is a solid corner, and I think they'll have some good matchups. And I would give Jason Marshall Jr. the benefit of the doubt in saying that 65.9 is largely against SEC wide receivers. So definitely pretty impressive there. The other guy we've got going is Jalen Kimber, is listed as their other corner. Jalen Kimber, a 65.8. Very good coverage or above average coverage, pretty rough in run defense. But I would say his grade is only on 196 snaps. Solid sample size, but probably doesn't tell the full story. I think we'll see more of what he's all about once he really gets full playing time there. So that's the cornerback group for Utah. Um, looks like a solid corner group. I'll say that for him. Looks like a solid group of corners. So I'll give him that. Not the greatest group of corners, but a decent group, right? And now we're going to move into the safeties. And as we break down Florida, they kind of run a weird type of defense. They have the star position. They have the F position. They got the jack position. So there's a lot going on here. I think the F is like the freak position or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we'll go ahead and talk about their safeties first. So Miguel Mitchell is going to be their first starting safety. And Miguel Mitchell doesn't say if he's a free or a strong, but if you're a Florida fan, I think this is a concerning grade, right? A 55.8 grade and a 48.0 coverage grade or run defense grade. That's a little concerning, right? That means if he has to go against this good Utah running back room, if they get third level, they could go to the house, right? That's a little. I'm serious. If I'm a Florida fan, I look at that and I'm concerned. Decent to slightly below average in coverage, so not a terrible player, but a good chunk below average and a guy that could be a liability. He's the first guy I've seen that looks like he could be a liability. And then the other guy we have is Jordan Castell. Now, Jordan Castell is a true freshman. So they're going to have a true freshman starting as the other safety. Tough to know too much about a true freshman, but I'd say that's good for Utah considering this guy doesn't look great and the other guy is going to be a true freshman. That should bode very well for Utah's ability to go against these safeties. I'd look for Utah to take advantage of that. Right off the bat, it's going to be a position group I think Utah is going to look to take advantage of. We got a deep wide receiver room, and we're going to spread the field. And as they start to creep up due to the run, or if we get a run breaking third level, I could see us really taking advantage of those safeties. All right, now we're going to go ahead and move into the linebacker type positions. Like I said, it's a pretty complicated defense. There's a lot of different positions. So one thing I forgot to mention when we were looking at corners is this guy, Jaden Hill, is actually listed as one of their star positions. And if I'm correct, star is kind of like a mix between safety and linebacker. And this guy is pretty good, actually. So on 435 snaps, above average to good grade and a 69.7. 72.1 coverage grade, pretty bad pass rusher, but that's only on 3 snaps, so that's not a big deal. Run defense, below average, so a guy that we shouldn't struggle running against, but he will be pretty good in coverage. And now we're going to move on to the linebackers, and one of their stars is listed as a linebacker. Like I said, it's a little confusing, but uh, well, it'll make sense in a second here. So we'll just go down the list of their linebackers and the star that's listed in here. And star is just it's a position on their defense, guys. Like I said, it's a mix. I think is the best way to explain it. And Florida fans, feel free to jump in the comments if I'm not explaining it completely correctly, but it's a mix. It's kind of like a linebacker safety hybrid. All right, so the first guy we're going to look at linebacker is going to be Scooby Williams. So Scooby Williams is right here. He's listed as their first linebacker. Pretty rough grade for this guy. 54.2, that's well below low average. It's in the bad range. 51.6 run defense, that's pretty rough. 61.3 pass rush, that's like below average, but not terrible. And then coverage, 57.7. So this is a guy right here, just across the board. He's not very good, and he's below average in a lot of categories. I would not be surprised to see Utah try to take advantage of that. Last year was only his redshirt freshman year, so he probably improved a little, but I still think that's a guy we could try to take advantage of a little bit. Shamar James right here. Another guy, not a great PFF grade here, guys. A 60.6, 53.5 run defense grade. That's when you're starting to get into the really bad grades. Now, to be fair, on 27 pass rush snaps, he actually has a very good pass rush grade. So a guy to watch out for on some blitzes. And Shamar James listed as linebacker, so would not be shocked to see him get sent on some blitzes for sure. Little below average in coverage, but not terrible. But definitely so far, this group isn't very good against the run. Not looking great for Florida against this good Utah rushing offense. And then as the star position, the Sam is also Scooby Williams. So the Sam is also Scooby Williams. So he'll be switching out at Sam and at linebacker. Uh, Shocked they have this guy filling such a big role. Doesn't look like he's going to be great based on these grades. So, just calling it as I see it. Scooby Williams, number 17. So both sides keep an eye out for Scooby Williams. All right, now let's take a look at this. Okay, and this is where, from what I was looking at before I broke all this down, is Florida's defense starts to get pretty good at the defensive line. And like I said, Utah has some question marks on their offensive line, and this is where things might get get a little hectic. So first guy I'm going to look at is Cameron Jackson. So we got him here a 72.4 grade on 577 snaps, a super good, a 76.0 run defense. That's really, really good. 65.8 pass rush, that's average, and 65.1 coverage. Obviously, this guy's job is to stop the run and make sure people don't get by him. So definitely a guy I'm a little concerned about. And then we're going right back up against it with Tyreek Sapp. Tyreek Sapp, another guy, 70.8. 72.5 run defense grade, and then average to below average grades in pass rush and coverage. Good player, right? And what I think I like, if I'm a Florida fan, one thing I like that I noticed is even though these guys are primarily run stoppers, they're not bad pass rushers. Like they still brings, some talent in the pass rush game. And Tyreek Sapp is listed as the F position. That's the freak. That's like the stand-up linebacker that's job or stand-up edge rusher type of guy that's meant to hold the edge. And boom, let's see, ignore snap minimums. I don't think there's anyone else in here we'll see getting a lot of snaps. Good thing is a lot of these guys are more rotational type guys. If these rotational type of guys get in, don't look too impressive. Desmond Watson, is he on here? No, he's not on here. And then let's go ahead and move to the actual edge rushers for Florida. I think we might have some good guys here. I've heard some names here, so let's take a look. All right, boom. Okay, here's the guy, Princely Umanamilan. I probably didn't say that right, but this is a guy I've heard a lot about. So take a look at this guy's 82.1 defensive grade on 498 snaps. It's a big sample size. This guy's legit. He's a junior. He's going to be looking to come in and cause some havoc. 78.8 run defense grade. That's legit. That's really good. 83.1 pass rush grade. That's borderline elite, right? This is going to be a guy that's going to want to cause problems and definitely has the ability to do so. He's listed as their jack. If I'm correct, the jack is a guy that'll drop back and play some linebacker too. I think that's what it is. It's like an edge rusher that'll drop back in coverage sometimes as well. But I don't think that's the plan with this guy. he looks awesome. I think Florida knows he's awesome and thinks he's going to be a fantastic player. He definitely looks that way. One guy I've seen get a lot of hype, and I see him listed as a backup a lot, is Jack Pyburn. Now, this is only on 43 snaps, but I would say this is not a guy that Florida wants to see the field. These are pretty rough grades. So I would say if he does see the field, not too concerned about him there. But that is the end of the Florida defense against the Utah offense. All right, guys. And so that was Utah's offense versus Florida's defense. In a second here, we're going to talk about Florida's offense versus Utah's defense. But first, I kind of want to touch on those matchups and say what we're going to be looking for here. So the first thing that really stood out to me was the quality of linebackers and quality of safeties for Florida. And when I say that, safety to start, there was the Miguel Mitchell, who's the only safety that has any experience, had a pretty poor PFF grade and really bad against the run and not exactly great in coverage. I think if you're Utah, you're going to want to exploit that because the other safety is a freshman. That's going to be the number one area of attack. Then they have a linebacker group that's not exactly great. We broke down the grades, right? Like these are going to be the areas Utah wants to attack. Get your running game second level. Find ways to attack them over the middle. Find ways to attack them between the safeties, under the safeties, right? Find ways to exploit that. If you're Florida, Utah's offensive line is a little questionable, and I know a lot of Utah fans don't want to hear that, but I'm keeping it real. I don't like to not call shots when I see them, and then in the game it's playing out, and I didn't call it. So I'm just going to be real. Utah's offensive line is a little concerning to me. I could see it being good right away, but I could also see it taking 3 to 4 games to really get going. And this is going to be a tough defensive line if they're not ready to go, dude. We got a freshman at left tackle. It's about to go against one of the best edge rushers in college football in Princely Uman Milan. He's going to be number one when you watch him out there. Let's hope that Spencer Fano can hold his own against this guy. That guy's going to be nasty, dude. So I think if you're Florida, you want your D line just attacking, let the rest of the guys drop back, rush 4, just send 4 every play, let them attack. I think if you're Utah, how you address that is lots of screens, lots of misdirection. Get them to start questioning. That's how you stop really good defensive lines. I'm a Jets fan in the NFL. Super good defensive line, but screen plays will kill us sometimes. And I think that's what Utah needs to do against Florida. Use the screens, like get them in space. Make these defensive linemen start guessing. Are they running a screen? Should I go for the quarterback? What's going on? You do that, it takes a ton of pressure off. So hopefully that happens. And hopefully that's how we address it. And hopefully our offensive line can, hold their own against this awesome defensive line. And then I would say our wide receivers against their corners, I think I would give us a slight edge, but nothing crazy. They're a solid group, a good group. And I'd say our number one guy in Devon Bailey should be a good one, a good matchup for us. And then if we do spread the field and, do a 3-4 wide receiver sets, I think we match up pretty well against our corners. We have a pretty deep wide receiver room. So that's how I put that. Tight end, obviously, let's get our tight ends in the mix, exploit those linebackers. We got a really good receiving group of tight ends in Thomas Yasmin, and Brant Keithy. And then we got Landon King behind them. We got, Miki Sugataraga. So really good group, dude. I've honestly, after breaking this down, I'm sure a lot of Utah fans would agree. I feel really good about the matchup. I don't love our offensive line against their defensive line, but I think we'll hold our own, and I think we're going to make a lot of plays against this defense. I think this run game is going to be nasty. It's going to be tough against this D line, but once we make the plays second level, I think we can get third level, and I think we can go to the house when you look at those PFF grades. So that's my breakdown for Utah's offense versus Florida's defense. All right, and here we go. Let's go ahead and start breaking down Florida's offense. Now, it all starts with the guy at the helm in Graham Mertz. Now, Graham Mertz is a transfer from Wisconsin. Let me get a quick sip of water. Like I said, Graham Mertz, transfer from Wisconsin. And I find it funny on both sides. I've done a lot of crap talking about Graham Mertz, but I've also seen a lot of Florida fans crap talking on Bryson Barnes, which is funny because they have almost the exact same PFF grade. Pretty dang similar. So let's go ahead and take a look at Graham Mertz's career PFF grades. So as a freshman, really good. 82.1 is a really good PFF grade. 2020. And just so you know, with quarterbacks, you got to kind of take it a little lightly. They grade quarterbacks really well. So I'd say 69.5 is like average and 65.5 is like below average, where 75.3 is good. It's not amazing, but it's good. And so I'd say this: Bryson Barnes and Graham Mertz are better than a lot of people on both sides are giving them credit for. Uh, I don't think Graham Mertz is going to be great, but he's not going to be terrible. He's going to be a decent quarterback that should do a decent job for Florida. So this is much as I'm going to touch on Graham Mertz. I think we're all in the same boat. None of us really know what Graham Mertz is going to look like. Could I see him looking terrible? Yeah. Could I see him looking pretty dang good? Yeah, I could, dude. I feel like that guy's got enough of a variance in sample size where you really don't know what's going to happen with him. So, and now let's go ahead and talk about the wide receiver room for Florida. And I think it all starts with Ricky Pearsall, right? Really good player in Ricky Pearsall. And one thing I want to point out with this guy is last year, his snaps were mainly in the slot, 349. Now, obviously, Florida had a different wide receiver room last year than they do this year. But I really wonder if he's in the slot or if he's out wide, because he did play a good amount out wide, but not even close to what he played in the slot. And I think if you're Florida, I'll touch on it more later, you might want this guy in the slot. That might be where your best matchups are, right? So that's Ricky Pearsall. The other receivers they've got listed are Caleb Douglas and Khalil Jackson. So Khalil Jackson, we'll touch on him first. Pretty good PFF grade here, 72.6. The thing is, it's only on 45 snaps, so it's hard to judge much off of that. Khalil Jackson's a redshirt sophomore, so I think you can't say too much. I mean, 45 is such a small sample size. So I would say, big guy, 6'3", 219. If I'm Florida, I'm excited that he's out there and that he looked good in camp and stuff. But I would say, if that grade's in the 50s when the game starts, you wouldn't be shocked. If it's in the 70s, you wouldn't be shocked, right? Pretty high variance there. And then the other guy they've got listed is Caleb Douglas. 64.9 PFF grade on 260 snaps. So I'd say that's, enough of a sample size to feel like you really understand what the kid brings to the table. So that's an average receiver. He's not going to be a game breaker, but he's going to be decent. He'll be a guy to definitely, will need a good corner against him. That's how I'd put that with him. And then for running backs for Florida, let's take a look here. This is definitely a room that I've heard a lot from Florida fans, how good they are. And they're definitely a good group. I mean, you take a look here. I don't think they're as elite as Florida fans make them out to be. These are very good grades. They're not elite grades for running backs. Whereas Utah does have some elite grades for running backs. I'll give Florida this. Utah doesn't have quite the sample size that they have, but it's not exactly a tiny sample size with our running backs. And I'd say it's pretty clear we have the better running back room. I'd find, if anyone's going to disagree with that, I'd find it pretty surprising, unless they're just straight up Florida homers. So let's start with the main guy. So Montrell Johnson is going to be the main back. His rushing grade's at 81, super good grade. The thing is, it's about him and the other back we'll touch on in a second. He can't do too much outside of that. Bad pass blocker. Both of these guys, bad pass blockers. Trevor Etienne's the other guy that's going to be getting carries. Both very good when the ball's in their hands, but if they're asked to do anything else, Trevor Etienne's a below average-ish running back at wide receiver. Good pass blocker, I'll give him that. But basically, Montrell, who's their starter, isn't very good at anything else except throwing the ball, which I don't know if that's the number one thing you look for on the resume there. And then they have Trevon Webb. He is listed as the third running back. He is a freshman. So that is the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs for Florida. All right, and right here is the tight end room for Florida. And honestly, this is probably the worst group on their team. This is their number one tight end right here, and Deontay Xanders. a 45.1 grade on 528 snaps. That is rough. And not a lot of positive here. I mean, it's basically everything's either bad or well below average. Pretty rough guy. Not trying to make the kid feel bad. Those grades are just, those are pretty rough grades. And then their other tight end is a freshman. Doesn't seem like the worst idea in the world to start a freshman out of this group. Um, Jonathan Odom is listed as a rotational guy, or he's listed on the depth chart. And then another redshirt freshman named Hayden Hansen. So I'd say this tight end group, considering this is your number one guy with a 45.1 and the other guy's a freshman, kind of reminds me of a worse version of the safeties we looked at on the defense. This is a bad group. If you're Florida and you don't know that by looking at this, I don't know what to tell you there. So, yeah, rough group there. And let's go ahead and move on to the offensive line, which, if you're a Florida fan, I think this overall will be a much better group. It will be probably one of the best total groups on your team. First guy we're going to look at is Kingsley Iguacan, however you say that. I believe he is the starting center. Let me just double check. Yes, he is. And you take a look here. The guy's pretty damn not great, but he's a solid center. I mean, below average, 55.6. What he is, he's not a good run blocker, which is good for Utah, but he's above average to good pass blocker. That's what we got there. And that's on 830 snaps. That's probably a pretty true grade. That's what you're getting in that guy. Decent pass blocker and a below average run blocker. So I'd say that's fair. Don't worry, it gets better, Florida fans. This is a good offensive line. And the next guy you probably heard a lot about is Micah Mazuka, one of the best guards in college football last year, a 74.4 grade, a 76.9 run block grade on 392 run blocking snaps, a 66.9 pass block grade on 367 pass block snaps. The guy's very good. Yeah, he's a very good guard. Going to be a tough matchup for Utah. It's probably not the guy you're going to want to pick on. Hopefully we can get a couple pass rushes by him, but it's going to be tough in the run game. And then the other starting guard is going to be Richie Leonard. That's the left guard right guard is Micah, and then left guard is Richie. 64.6 for Richie. Far below average to bad pass block grade, and a 69.4. That's an above average to good run blocking grade. Again, this is only on 222 snaps, so a little raw, but that's probably a reasonably true grade. It's enough snaps to make you feel like you kind of know what you're getting with the kid. So it's a pretty good tackle group. Left guard in Richie Leonard, not great, but decent to above average, or average. He's right at average, and then very good in Micah Mazuka. And now we're going to move into the tackles. Now the tackles are going to be right tackle. We've got Damian George Jr. All right, let's ignore. Boom. Damian George Jr. So 70.2. That's a good grade. Really good pass blocking grade. Average run block grade. The issue is it's only on 20 snaps. You really have no idea what you're getting with this guy. He's a redshirt sophomore, so he's got a couple years in the system, but still, redshirt sophomore with 20 snaps last year. I wouldn't expect him to come out and kill it. Did he have any snaps the year before? 2021. Does it say how many snaps he had? It doesn't say how many snaps, but it looks like his grades have gone up. So I'd expect him to probably be an average-ish tackle. I mean, it's hard to know, but pretty raw there. You can see a lot of different outcomes. There's not a lot of sample size to look at. Austin Barber, though, is a straight animal. So 655 offensive snaps, 347 run block, or 347 pass block, 308 run block, 79.3 grade. This is one of the best tackles in college football. When you look at that, that's like an elite tackle type of grade. I don't know about elite, but like very, very, very good, borderline elite. 76.8 pass block, 78.8 run block grade. That offensive line is going to be a good group. It's hard to say anything else about them, but should be a good group. And outside of that, that'll do it for the Florida offense. All right, now we're going to move on to the Utah defense, and we're going to start this off with the DBs for Utah. Really good group for Utah. I'm sure a lot of Utah fans know that, and I'm sure a lot of Florida fans know that as well. So we're going to start with the cornerbacks. The first guy is Zamiah Vaughn. Now, if you've been paying attention to Utah football, you know that at the second half of last year, this guy came on so strong and lit up the field. He was one of the better cornerbacks in college football last year and looked awesome. I expect him to be a number one corner that can take on almost anyone on any team. I think the really only the receivers that are going to give him problems are like elite receivers. He looked really good last year, guys. The grade shows it, and the film showed it as well. 76.9 grade on 524 snaps, 78.1 coverage grade on 321 coverage snaps. That's awesome. Pac-12 has some good receivers, right? The Pac-12's got some good receivers, and he got to prove it against them. So that's good to see. And then we've got our guy over here, Travis Broughton. He is listed as the other starting quarterback corner, 64.0 grade, 65.6 in coverage. And I'd say I'm not the biggest fan of Travis Broughton. I'm not going to hate on him. Glad he won the job. And maybe he's really solidified, some of his problems in this past year, in this past offseason. Basically, who JT Broughton's been for me is a guy that will do pretty well snap after snap. He's the guy that threw up in that video. If you guys saw the guy that threw up last year when he played for Florida, it was him. But he's a guy that'll play snap after snap well, and then all of a sudden give up a ridiculously big play. I think I can think of 3-4 times where it happened last year. Just annoying to watch. I mean, I feel like those big plays are just killers, dude, especially at corner. Hurt your confidence, they hurt your team, they give up points. I mean, is what it is. And then his backup is Miles Battle, 62.2 grade. So, a little below average there, but that was in SEC, so playing against some good competition. Good run defender, a little below average in coverage. So, wouldn't hate it if he saw the field a little, but from these grades at least, you'd think that we're better off with uh, Travis Broughton. I don't know though. All right, and then the next guy that's going to be getting some playing time is actually redshirt freshman Tao Johnson. Now, this is awesome to see. I'm a big fan of Tao Johnson. He doesn't have any PFF grades because he didn't play corner at all last year. Definitely concerning, but I mean, he won the spot over some good talent. So you got to think Utah knows what they're doing and putting Tao Johnson out there at corner. It's good to see. And I'm going to stay on this page for a second. So this guy right here, Sione Vaki, is actually going to be playing strong safety for Utah this year, a 79.5 grade. I mean, you look at that dude, 79.2 run defense, 78.6 coverage. This guy is a straight dog, dude. He's a beast, and he's going to be playing strong safety over the top for Utah. And that brings me to our next guy. Speaking of safeties, it is going to be our man, Cole Bishop. Where is he? Boom. Cole Bishop. So Cole Bishop is 75.5 grades, 740 snaps, 74.2 coverage, 69.2 run defense, great pass rusher. That's on 63 pass rush snaps. That's enough of a sample size to say, like, that's an elite grade on 63 snaps. Now, 63 is not enough to say that that's a real grade, but it's got to be, somewhat close. So Cole Bishop, straight beast. I'm sure Florida fans already know who he is. He's very good. That DB group is going to be really good. The liabilities, if you're Florida, that they could possibly take advantage of are the second corner and the slot corner. I don't think they suck, but they're not great. I think the safety help and some of the other positions on defense will make up for that a little, but definitely some spots where they could take advantage. All right, now we're going to move to the linebacker room, another great room for Utah. So take a look here. We've got, all right. So we've got the group right here. So the first two, Karine Reed, one of the studs of this defense. He's going to be playing the Rover linebacker. 69.6 run defense grade. That's above average. 74.8 pass rush grade on 83 pass rush snaps. That's a very good grade. 71.4 coverage grade on 321 coverage snaps. This guy's very well rounded and very good. Karine Reed's going to be one of the better linebackers in the country this year. And the guy right next to him at the stud linebacker is going to be Lander Barton. Lander Barton, 72.8 grade, 75.2 run defense grade, very good. Pass rush, 73.5, and that's on 96 pass rush snaps. So that's pretty accurate. And then we got coverage grade, little below average. I'd say this is the one spot where you'd want a little better, but the other two are awesome grades. So really good group of linebackers here. And then we got Lavani Damuni. He's transferring over from Stanford. Pretty poor run defense grade here at a 48.6, but very good coverage grade at 75.8. And on 47 pass rush snaps, he has an average grade of 66.4. So I'd say one thing that stands out that I hadn't really noticed before just now is a very good pass rushing linebacker group. Like if we blitz, we should be able to get back there, cause some havoc. The other thing about Lavani Damuni is he's coming over from Stanford, which is a terrible defense around him. It's hard to judge him based on that. And I do think he seems to be a better fit in the Utah style defense where he can be a true MAC or middle linebacker and just play that position. So I think this 61.8 grade will be a good chunk higher. I think he'll be real similar to Mahmoud Diabate from last year, where it takes him a few games to really get into his own. But I'd still say he's probably better than a 61.8 right out the gate. So happy about him. And now let's move into our interior defenders. This is interior defensive line. Boom. Okay, for Utah, let's take a look here. The first guy is going to be Junior Tafuna. So Junior Tafuna had a pretty awesome freshman year, and you were expecting huge things. The grade did go up a little. It was kind of a weird one where he flashed a lot during his freshman year, and the grade went up a tiny bit, but still disappointing. You wanted a lot more from him. I think, in my opinion, Junior Tafuna is a guy that gets a ton of hype that I think is a solid player, but he's got to prove it on the field. Like, these grades need to go up, right? And it's tough to know like what he's being asked to do and how much he has to play certain ways to be in position for what the defense is asking. But I mean, it's hard to justify that. We need to see a little better play from Junior. I think it's this year is going to be a big year for him. I expect him to step up, and I expect that grade to be a lot better. I think Florida is going to be a great opportunity for him to do that. And then we've got Keanu Tanuvasa. So this is a guy that only saw 41 snaps last year and is going to be one of the starting D tackles, 66.8. Pretty balanced pass rush and run defense. Hard to know what he's truly capable of. The grade could be a little worse or could be better once he gets more snaps. I think Florida is going to be a tough test for the guy. But if you earn this spot, it's really impressive because look who he earned it over. This Samode Pepa is actually listed as our third defensive tackle behind Junior Tafuna. I think it's a conditioning thing from what I've heard because he's a really big dude, 6'3", 330, but he is a beast on the field. 76.4 run defense grade, 67.2 pass rush, and even can cover a little bit. But Samode Pep is a beast. Definitely a guy I want to see him get a lot of reps in and make it happen. Tavita Fotu is listed as the D tackle behind Keanu Tanuvasa. And he is an unknown. He has not played any snaps for Utah yet. So we'll have to see how that goes. And now let's move into the final position group. Now, this is an exciting one for Utah. This is going to be a pretty heavy rotation, is my guess. Let's pull them up here. Oh, not SEC. All right, Utah Utes. Okay. Boom, turn off the snap count. Okay, so the first guy we're going to look at is Connor O'Toole. Connor O'Toole, an average grade, 64.2, but played 438 snaps. We got a 65.5 run defense. We got a pretty poor pass rush or below average pass rush, 58.7, decent in coverage, 64.8. He's an average guy that leans run defense. That's how I'd put it with him. I was a little surprised that he won the starting position. I do think it's going to be a rotation, like I said. But you know, is what it is. Maybe he really proved something over the offseason. Let's hope he did, and that's what I'm banking on. Now we got Van Fillinger. So Van Fillinger, 64.7 grade, 64.9 run defense, 63.0 pass rush, 56.8 coverage. Not really good at coverage, but balanced guy, a guy that similar to Junior Tafuna, where you wanted a lot from him last year and you didn't get it. You can see here, solid freshman year, maybe slightly below average in the grade, but for a freshman to come out and do that, you get hyped, and he was a big prospect. Followed it up 2021, not the greatest, like a little better, and then a little better in 2022. Hopefully, this is Van Fillinger's year. I really feel confident that one of either Van Fillinger or Junior Tafuna will pop onto the scene and become a star this year. I just don't know who. Um, the next guy I want to look at is Jonah Ellis. So Jonah Ellis is actually listed behind Van Fillinger, but killed it last year. Was a 73.8 grade. Really good. 73.5 run defense, 62.7 pass rush. I'm going to be surprised if Jonah doesn't see a lot of snaps because he's also really good in coverage. And I feel like the fact that they're going to want to run the ball down our throats and he's so good against the run means that we're going to want him to be out there, getting a lot of snaps. The guy behind Connor O'Toole is actually going to be Logan Fano. Now, Logan Fano played for BYU last year, medical reasons. I don't think that year counts for him, so he's technically a freshman. But he does have some experience, and he was a big prospect as well before he transferred over to Utah. So that is Utah's defense. That is the whole group. All right, so that was Utah's defense against Florida's offense. I think there's a few points just to bring up right off the bat. I think one, Florida's offense, or Graham Mertz specifically, is not as bad as a lot of people make him out to be. I'm definitely one that's guilty of teasing Florida fans a little about Graham Mertz. But definitely the PFF grade's not terrible, and he's had some good ones and hasn't ever really had any bad PFF grades. So I'd say Graham Mertz is probably going to be pretty decent. He's not going to be a guy that just sucks when he goes out there. Um, that's my opinion on Graham. I also think they have a pretty good offensive line. It's a little top heavy. Like they're kind of similar. Utah doesn't have the top end talent that they have quite that level, but they have like two really good guys in a few spots where they could see some holes that aren't great, or just not a lot of playing time, and you don't know exactly what you're going to get. But I'd say they have an edge in offensive line compared to our defensive line. Slight edge. Actually, I'd say an edge. It's like I'd give us like a 6 out of 10, and I'd give them like a 7.5 out of 10, maybe 8 out of 10. So definitely an edge, but we got a lot of talent we'll be able to rotate in. And I think overall our average on our defensive line will be better than, or like the worst guy on our defensive line is better than the worst guy on their offensive line. That's how I'd put it. And then with that, I think wide receiver wise, they got a good group of wide receivers. One guy's a little unknown in Khalil Jackson, and then Caleb Douglas, an average guy. But Ricky Pearsall is going to be really good. I think he's going to keep our safeties and our corners occupied. I think if you're Florida, if Teo Johnson is in the slot, and I don't know what their plan is with Ricky Pearsall. Is he in the slot? Is he out wide? We'll see. But if he is in the slot and he's covered by Teo Johnson, who's a redshirt freshman that has never played the position, you're going to want to take advantage of that. Like that's if I was Florida's coach, that's what I'd be looking at. That'd be a opportunity that I'd be biting at. I do think our DBs do match up pretty well against their group of wide receivers. I think they've got one star, one guy with some upside, but not a lot of proven, not a lot of like actual plays played. And then they have one guy that's played a lot, but just a solid receiver, won't be anything special in Caleb Douglas. So that's kind of what I see there. And then our linebackers should do a good job against their running backs. I think it's going to be on our defensive line a lot to make sure they don't get overwhelmed, and the offensive line is not attacking our running backs. Like make plays when plays are made there to be made. I think our linebacker room is going to do well. And if we need to, we can move a safety up in the box. Both of our safeties are pretty damn good against the run. So I'd say another situation where I think Utah matches up really well, guys. I mean, we just broke down all the grades. It's hard for me to keep it fair and balanced and say that Utah's defense won't do well against them. So that's kind of how I see it. I'd say, I'll break it down in a second here. I'll break it down in a second. All right, here we go, guys. Here is my final prediction on what I think will happen in the Utah versus Florida game. So I'm going to give you two scenarios with Cam Rising and without Cam Rising. The first scenario, let's say with Cam Rising. So I think Utah's defense is going to give up a couple plays here and there to Florida's team. I think they've got some explosiveness. They've got a lot of talent. There's going to be plays. The trick for Utah is to limit how many plays it is and just play good, disciplined football. Just don't let these talented players get in open space and break away. I also think outside, their defensive line is a little better, or their offensive line is a little better than our defensive line. But outside of that, I think we got them beat almost everywhere. That's about it, though. I think we'll be fine at their wide receivers against our DBs. I think our linebackers will do great against their running backs. I don't see too many matchups. They have terrible tight ends. Like their tight ends are a freshman and a terrible guy. So our linebackers are going to be able to get in there and have fun against the running backs and get dirty. It should be good. So I see a really good matchup there. I don't think this Florida offense is going to do great against our defense. I think with our offense, again, their defensive line is a slight edge. They're good in the trenches on both sides. It is true. I think our offensive line could surprise me either negatively or positively. We got to see what happens there. If our offensive line doesn't look good, then that it could be a problem. But I think they'll look decent and they'll give up some plays to Florida. They'll, some bad protection here and there or a tackle for loss every now and then. But I think in general, we'll do a decent job. I don't think we'll get bullied by them or anything like that. I also think our tight ends, again, it's like both sides of the ball. It's funny how this works out. It's like our tight ends match up really well against their linebackers. I think our receivers have a slight edge over their corners and their safeties are really not good. Like it's a freshman and a guy that had a pretty poor PFF grade last year and really bad against the run. So I think we're going to run the ball well. I think we're going to have to get creative. We're going to have to involve screens like I talked about, involve the tight ends a lot in like little dump offs. Just get that defensive line guessing. And then the whole playbook opens up like crazy. Like it really does. And so I think we can do that. I think we show every year that we can do that. 2021 and 2022, we did a lot of creative play calling and we moved guys around a lot and just keep the defense guessing. So I think we'll do very well. So I think if Cam does play, I think we beat Florida 31-20. That is my guess. If Cam does play, we beat Florida 31-20. And I think that's just because we have a great quarterback and it opens up a ton for us. And I don't know. It's kind of just how I see it. When I broke down all that, I think our offense is going to score a good amount of points against this defense. And I think their offense is going to struggle to score points against our defense. That's really how the game broke down. We looked at the PFF grades and, what we were going up against. If Bryson Barnes is the starter, I see a different game. I see a lower scoring game because I think what happens is the reason I think they'll score more points if Cam does play, even though Cam's not on defense, it's because we're scoring more points. So we play a different style of defense. And so how I see it going, if Bryson Barnes is the starter, it is a run heavy attack, which is going to be tough against this D line. But like I said, we'll do the same thing with Barnes. Get creative, give all these different receivers. We have all this tight end talent. We have opportunities to make plays in space, make plays on screens, that sort of thing. And it will start to loosen things up and make us run a little better. So even if Bryson Barnes is starting, I have Utah. I'd say Utah wins that game 21-17 for Utah. So a much closer game, but if Bryson Barnes plays, we win by 4. If Cam plays, we win by 11. So that's kind of how I have it. If you guys enjoy the video, please make sure you like it. Let me know what you guys think of my projections. Seriously, if you guys watch this long, I'm going to give you guys a secret little thing to say in the comments just so I know that you actually watched the whole thing because this was a long video. So I'm excited to see who actually watched it. What should it be? What should we say? I got one. If you watch the whole video, comment below and say, Brant Kuithe is the most underrated tight end in the country. And if you're a Florida fan and you watch the whole time, comment below, say Graham Mertz is the most underrated quarterback in the country. So again, if you watch this whole time, you're a Utah fan or you just like Brant Kuithe, just comment below. Brant Kuithe is the most underrated tight end in the country. If you're a Florida fan, type in Graham Mertz is the most underrated tight end in the country. I hope you guys enjoyed a lot. Seriously, if you stayed this long and you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Subscribe to the damn channel, guys. Outside of that, I am out of here. I hope you guys appreciated this. I am tired. It is like 11 o'clock right now, so I am ready to go to bed. Gotta work in the morning. So excited for this freaking Florida game, dude. Florida fans, if you see me, say hi. I'm excited to meet you guys. Utah fans, if you see me, say hi too. I'm excited to meet you guys too. I'll be at the game. I got really dope seats. My boss got me some really cool seats, so I'm pretty hyped. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Go Utes.